WNST, Towson, but plenty of action this week, though, as Marvin Lewis has fired his defensive coordinator. He'll take over the defense this week as the Bengals come to Baltimore, a damaged defense. And, of course, the Ravens, well, where do we begin with Joe Flacco, his health, Lamar Jackson, the future of John Harbaugh, and a 4-5 football team? This guy chronicles the NFL out of the fighting city of Detroit, where they have their own problems there. They don't ever get to Super Bowls. He is a writer for the 538 as well as The Athletic in Detroit and doing a Lions podcast when he's not writing about the National Football League. We welcome Ty Schalter, one of our defending champions, back onto the program. You can find him out on Twitter as well at Ty, that's T-Y, Schalter, S-C-H-A-L-T-E-R. What's going on, man? I mean, tough times in Detroit, but here in Baltimore, we expect more stability and certainly had a better start to the season. Your whole division's been upended by the stupidity of John Gruden, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, like you said, stability, I think, is and consistency is where the Ravens are at. I really liked the way the season was shaping up for Baltimore. I loved the way the numbers last year really it showed they kind of underperformed in terms of wins and losses, where they were at in terms of scoring and outscoring opponents. But we're back in the same situation. That awesome defense has led them to having one of the better scoring differentials in the league. Everything points towards they should have more wins on the board than they have. At some point, there's only so many times in a row you can have that situation before you start to go, well, then what is it? What's the difference between winning and losing? And so often in the NFL, it's both the head coach and the quarterback.
Well, which brings us to the hot seat here in the middle of the season. And, yeah, John Clayton on earlier in the week talking about as many as 11 jobs could be turning over. And this is the time we start to talk about that. And, it's Marvin Lewis and John Harbaugh again. Marvin's been a coach there 16 years. He's only had two coaches. Brian and John are the only two people he's ever coached against. And then he goes to Pittsburgh, and it's Mike Tomlin. And meanwhile, Cleveland becomes a turnstile. Fascinating this week that Marvin Lewis brings in Hugh Jackson. They will play the Browns twice. The Browns will be paying Hugh Jackson to try to beat them yet again a few more times and add to their draft stock for April as per usual. But this week is a particularly memorably weird week in the Bengals and the Ravens, given everything that's on to this game where the loser is really going the wrong direction for a wild card or a playoff berth, and certainly here with Flacco and Harbaugh, even larger footprints than that.
Absolutely. Totally pivotal, both coaching staffs. John Harbaugh has thrown his fair share of coordinators on the pyre in his stead over the years to kind of keep himself where he's at. And like you said, both these guys, two of the longest tenure guys in a game where it is very, very difficult to stay in one place for very long. Bringing back Hugh Jackson has a kind of nice romantic air to it. You bring back a guy who had a lot of success as an offensive coordinator in Cincinnati, a lot of those great early 2000s, mid-2000s Bengals players and teams. They loved working for Hugh. And so maybe going back into that assistant role will help Bill Lazor, the offensive coordinator there. I'm not sure exactly what his role is now if you bring in Hugh Jackson as this special assistant to the head coach. So there's some stuff going on there. And really surprising, they fired Terrell Austin 9 games into bringing in this guy to come in and be the architect of kind of the next generation of Bengals defense. Instead, Marvin Lewis will go back to drawing that up himself. So Marvin Lewis calling his own number to save his own future maybe, and then John Harbaugh, then like you said, there's the hot seat there, but there's also the guy under center who's going to go out and throw. And Joe Flacco, at the beginning of the year, in the preseason, this looked like we were getting good Joe Flacco, and now things have kind of turned sour. Health becomes a question, and for the first time in Joe Flacco's entire career, there's a guy fans might want to see come off that bench and take that job from him.
Well, and I think they're going to get an opportunity to at least see him throw the football around. And if the Ravens do lose this week, God forbid, next week against the Raiders or fall out of this, the national media is ready to pile on this and watch Lamar Jackson throw the football. I'm in the building a lot. I'm at the games. I'm in the locker room. I don't think there's anybody around the organization that senses that Lamar Jackson is ready to go win 12 football games in this league.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is this is a team where expectations should be high. This is not This is not the Cleveland Browns. This is not they have a couple of guys who could be the future. Let's go out and see what they can do. This is not if you win 7 games, it's like winning the Super Bowl. The Ravens want to win the Super Bowl. They have the defense to do it. They have the talent to go out there and win football games. And like you said, the clamoring for a change and for something new is coming from the bleachers. It's coming from a lot of the media, nationally too. But this is a guy who's proven himself, Joe Flacco, and he's proven he can be good enough to win, especially in clutch spots. But you got to be healthy enough to do it, and you do have to execute. It'll be unfortunate, but if you're John Harbaugh and you're looking at that bench and you're looking at this is my job, are you betting your job on what Lamar Jackson has shown so far? I'm not sure that you can.
He is Ty Schulter. You can follow him at the 538 as well as at the Athletic Detroit and out on Twitter at Ty Schulter. Covering the National Football League out of the Fighting City of Detroit. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at the Lee Tessier team, Baltimore's premier realty team, and the folks I'm trusting with my real estate transactions. With over 50 years of experience helping local buyers and sellers getting it together, locating the finest properties, and then negotiating the best deals. That's what they do. I met Lee through the leukemia space as the Leukemia Lymphoma Society Man of the Year. You can learn more about his work up there in Harford County and all throughout the area, and some Dundalk roots as well. LeeTessier.com. Also, Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast, the tasty Kona Blend coffee, the phenomenal fried chicken and the Western fries that you can only get at Rofo. It's made a lot easier if you have the Rofo Rewards card or you're downloading the Rofo app. When you pump your gas, you get your points, then you get your coffee for free, you get your Western fries for free. Real fresh, real fast. It is Royal Farms, and the Cloverland eggnog's there too, so make sure you're checking that out. Also, our friends at Cole Roofing, they sponsor our community and charity series. That's heard every Thursday here. If you have a story that's community-based and you want to tell it, you're having an event, a run, a dinner, bull roast, whatever it happens to be, email me, nasty@WNST.net. It's all brought to you by Cole Roofing. They've been there 99 years doing corporate and commercial roof spaces and solar space on the tops of wherever you're sitting in an office space. Cole Roofing can take great care of you. Learn more at ColeRoofing.com. And thanks to Bill Cole, I get weekly therapy here, which I'm going to need if the Ravens are going to lose to the Bengals. Ty Schulter is our guest right now out of Detroit. You talk about your division, and, I made a loose reference to John Gruden and Khalil Mack, but certainly quarterbacks, key players, big players, offense, changing the league right now, and Chicago feels on the uptick. Green Bay, despite having the Hall of Fame quarterback, feels like they're can't get out of their way to some degree. You're in Detroit, and it's a mess there. That's one of those divisions where it doesn't feel like anybody really puts their foot on the gas, but Chicago has been the best team so far, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you get those feelings. I think in NFL circles, fans and media, we kind of fall into that trap of, here's what happened last year. These guys added this guy. This team lost that guy. So you add and subtract, and then that's what it's going to be this year. That team minus this player is going to lose this many games. That team add this player going to win that many games. That's not how it is. The Chicago Bears, if you look at what they did, and you believe that Mitchell Trubisky could elevate his game, give you a few more of those spark-type plays that he showed last year, and continue to avoid mistakes, and continue to kind of play within himself, if you continue to run that ball, you believe that defense is going to continue to take a step forward. Even before Khalil Mack came around, there's a lot of talent. Leonard Floyd is great. Vic Sanchez done an incredible job there. Then you add Mack as one of the best instant game changers in the league, and you've got a team that's built to be really, really dangerous, playing with the lead and able to snuff people out and get turnovers and get on the front foot. And so, yeah, they're playing really, really well. And I thought, this isn't just a team of stacks in the division. Look, you had Minnesota, you had Green Bay. Detroit was going to continue to be about in that range. Chicago wasn't just going to leapfrog one team. Maybe they could leap 2 or 3, and that's kind of where they're at. Not a lot of people predicted them to be ahead of the rest of the division at this point. Nobody did. But Minnesota is kind of rounding into form. That defense is finding its way. Everson Griffin overcoming his issues to come back on the field. That's huge for them. Just like with Mack, an instant pass rusher is so beneficial for a defense, so difficult for an offense to scheme against. Green Bay is having the same issues. They're hitting the doldrums that they hit every single year. Where everyone's like, why can't Mike McCarthy scheme these guys to put them in the best positions? Why can't Aaron Rodgers just roll out of bed and throw for 35 points every single week, no matter who's on the field in front of him or next to him or behind him. And, usually they find their way out of it. Usually they play their way out of it. Usually they change something around, something clicks, somebody gets healthy from an injury. But the answers may not be there, especially in this division, especially against Chicago and Minnesota. They already lost to Detroit before the wheels fell off in Detroit. So Green Bay's path is very, very difficult right now. And Mike McCarthy, a guy who's come under fire again and again and again for staid coaching decisions, conservative game plans, and then conservative in-game decision-making. The word waste gets used around Aaron Rodgers right now. You're talking about maybe the best overall quarterback ever to do it. And again, the returns are diminishing and diminishing and diminishing from what people thought were going to be a surefire playoff team.
And then there's the Lions, where the wheels always going to come off the cart. It's just a matter of when, right? And is anything there better under Patricia than where it was, and certainly for Matt Stafford?
Well, I think this is the deal with Jim Caldwell was under Caldwell, they won all the games they were supposed to win. They lost all the games they were supposed to lose. You have an above-average, flashing elite-level quarterback in Matthew Stafford, who has become an every 16 games a year, every year guy. You're going to win 9-7. That's what's going to happen every single year, and that's what they decided to get rid of. And said, no, we're going to set the bar higher. We want to win titles. We want to beat the teams. We want to beat the best teams. But that also means they're trying to erase that ceiling. They've also erased that floor. And from week one, had Monday Night Football home game against the Jets. Ford Field is usually a fortress in those primetime games. They got blown out by Sam Darnold in his first NFL game. And then they turned around and beat the Patriots a couple weeks later. And they pretty soundly outplayed them, too. So now it's all over the map. You don't know what they are. After going to Miami and winning pretty convincingly in 95-degree heat, they come back and drop 3 games in a row, getting outscored almost double, 45-86, and it could have been worse. It could have been worse. So now you don't know what this team looks like. You don't know what they do well. And Matthew Stafford looks shell-shocked. Trading away Golden Tate had exactly the effect everybody thought it was. She doesn't have a safety valve. You lost the guy that defenses had to account for. And even though adding Damon Harrison has totally solidified the run defense, getting snacks up in the middle there, run defense doesn't help when you surrender the first 26 points of the game. In a secondary that got all kinds of picks last year, that got pick sixes, that flipped the field routinely, put the offense in good position. They look out of position. They look old. They look slow. Darius Slay being out hurt them, but it's not just one guy. Something is fundamentally wrong there. And it's starting to wonder if going out and picking only former Syracuse and New England Patriots coaches was the best way to go about building a staff for rookie head coach Matt Patricia.
They will play the Bears on Thanksgiving Day. He is in Detroit. He is Ty Schulter. You can find him out at the 538 as well as at the Athletic in Detroit. Always a pleasure to catch up with you, man. We'll stay in touch here, and we do not make it to Detroit this year, but at least in Thanksgiving week, we'll all be in Detroit for a couple hours next week, right?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Nestor. If you want to hear more on my line stuff, me and Chris Burke have a podcast, The Athletic. It's called Backward Down the Field, which is a play on the Lions play song Forward Down the Field. iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to podcasts.
It'll always be Hockey Town, right? I mean, at least you have the Pistons. Well, at least you have Michigan. Well, I don't know. I don't know what you have there. You got 3 months of cold weather ahead, but God bless the Lions, right?
Absolutely. The Red Wings are almost at 500. Everyone's very excited.
First time in a long time. Ty Schulter joining us here, writer for the 538 and the Athletic in Detroit. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. It's all brought to you by our friends at buyatoyota.com. Last but never least, on the 28th of the month, if you're up in Harford County, make your plans to join us over at Buffalo Wild Wings in Bel Air. We'll be at the festival watching the Terps take on Virginia. So we don't have a whole lot of these ACC matchups that we played Carolina a couple years ago. We're going to be up in Bel Air for that, swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry for There Goes My Hero. Come on out, watch some college basketball. Gives us a night out in the middle of the week to have a couple of beverages, and I always love getting up to B-dubs and getting some wings. Big old salad. Might even throw me down a cheeseburger as well. See what the monthly wing sauce of the month is. Thanksgiving time. right after Thanksgiving. I'm into the wings. Meet me at Buffalo Wild Wings on the 28th for Terps and Who's. I am Nestor. Meet me out on the internet as well on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.